In this math video, we're going to be learning about how we can convert between fractions, decimals, and percentages. One of the biggest things that I'd like for you to get out of this video is to learn that that fractions, decimals, and percentages are just merely different representations of the same number. So 3/4 can be written the same as this number and this number that we're going to come up with here. Okay, so we've got 3/4 here, or 3/4. First thing you need to know is to turn this fraction or any fraction into a decimal is we're going to need to be able to use our division skills. So the numerator of the fraction is always going to go into our division sum. So the numerator always goes in the inside of the sum. The denominator always goes on the outside here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to try and solve it. We've got, how many times does 4 go into 3? Well, we know that it actually doesn't go in there any times at all. So now I'm going to have to add on my floating 0, which is here, and add my decimal. So how many times does 4 go into 30 now? Well, we know that 4 goes into 30 about 7 times. So we can then cross multiply by saying, well, 7 times 4 is 28, and what's left over from that there is 2. Just move that underneath. And so now we need to pull down another 0, and we say, well, how many 4s fit into 20? And we know that that's 5. So our decimal is this one here. So 75 hundredths. So 3/4 is exactly the same as 75 hundredths. So now what we're going to do to make our decimal a percentage is we're going to multiply it by 100. So whenever you are going to make a decimal into a percentage, you multiply it by 100 and then you add the percent symbol. So if you're not sure how to do this, then you may need to watch our video on multiplying and dividing by 100 and powers of 10. So you move it 2 times over to the right. You move that decimal 2 times over to the right here. So then it ends up being 75%. So 75 hundredths, 3/4, and 75% actually all represent the same line, the same point on a number line. They are the same thing. They are just different ways of writing the same thing. Okay, so because this one I think is one of the most easiest ones to do, we're going to turn this decimal into a percentage over here. So we do that again by multiplying it by 100. So 0 and 24 hundredths multiplied by 100 equals 24%. So all we're doing there again is we're just taking that decimal and moving it twice over to the right and putting it here. So then it's a percentage. All right. So now what we're going to do with this decimal is to make it a decimal into a fraction, you need to know your decimal place value. And if you're not sure of that, again, there's a different video that you can watch to get more familiar with that before you can watch this one. So I'm going to count across now and find out what this number says. So the 2 is in the tenths place, the 4 is in the hundredths place. So this says 24 hundredths. So if I was going to write this as a fraction, I could simply just say, well, it's 24 over 100. This one here is the denominator. This one here is the numerator. But because what we normally like to do is really simplify all fractions that we can, what we'll try and do is find something called the highest common factor between these two numbers here. So the first one that popped into my mind was 2. I was like, oh, both of them have 2 in common, and I could just halve both of them. And you can do that. That's not a problem at all, because then you'd end up with 12 over 50. So it's like saying dividing each one by that common factor. But then I'm going to find another factor that they have in common, and I'm going to have to keep simplifying and keep simplifying. You can do that, it's not a problem, it's just more time consuming. So a factor that is higher and still common between the two is 4. So if I said, well, how many 4s go into 24? 6. How many 4s go into 100? And then I have 25. So now it is my simplified fraction. So 6 over 25. And I got there in one easy step, just knowing the highest common factor was 4, rather than simplifying and then simplifying again. All right, so now we're going to look at our last one here. So to make a percentage into a decimal. Now we've already learned how we make a decimal into a percentage, and we do that by multiplying by 100 or moving the decimal 2 places over to the right. So we do the opposite when we're making the percentage into the decimal by moving the decimal 2 places to the left. So remember, there's an invisible decimal at the end of every ones place. So that's where our decimal is. We move it 2 over to the left, so this actually then becomes 6/10. And so now, because we know our place value, that's in the tenths column, we can just write this as a fraction, like this. So now what we can think of is the highest common factor between these two numbers. Now in this circumstance, it actually is 2. So we divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2. So how many 2's are in 6 is 3. And how many 2's in 10? That's 5. So it's 3/5. Okay, good luck, and I hope that you enjoy the video. Remember to show all of your working out. I hope it helped. Bye.